Everybody. My name is Stephanie Craybill. I am the chairperson of the Family Communications Committee. Um, we are here tonight with a special guest, two special guests. Eddie Anderson, our Director of Operations, Assistant Superintendent of Operations, and Mark Clausen, who is his Director of Transportation. So what I'd like to do, first of all, I'd like to welcome everybody. Right now, everybody is on mute, and we are gonna kind of stay that way until Mr. Anderson and Mr. Clausen make their report, or not make their report, give us a little overview of what we wanted to talk about with transportation, and then folks can just jump in, or after we get done, go ahead and put your questions in the chat, and then so that we will have those ready, to queue up at the end. And then as we're getting through to the end, then we can maybe open it up for dialogue if there's not a whole bunch of us on there. Sometimes it's a little hard when you have a bunch of people, but I wanted to make sure, is there anybody on our call who is and needs a Spanish interpreter? Because we do have Sandra with us today and who can do that. So is there anybody that needs that? Oh, Sandra, I guess you have to say that. Sorry.
Let me repeat that in Spanish. ¿Hay alguien en esta llamada hoy que necesite traducción en español ahora? No response, and we can ask again once.
You were a little breaking up, Sandra.
Yeah, Sandra, you were garbled. If you could ask that one more time, please.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. ¿Hay alguien que necesite la traducción en español? Por favor, hable ahora.
And have them put it in the chat that they need that.
Oh, that's true. That's a good idea.
También lo pueden poner en la cajita de chat.
Okay, well then we'll just keep an eye on the participants list in case we see other people that join, and we can do another double check, as we get going. So I'd like to turn it over to Josh Smith, our Chief Communications Officer, to add a few comments, and then we'll get the show on the road, so to speak.
Thanks, Ms. Craybill. Welcome, everyone. So I think in continuing the theme of having subject matter experts and issues that are top of mind every month at our Family Communications Committee, this evening we're going to talk about transportation, and we have the transportation subject matter experts here to kind of go over a presentation and then take questions. And so we've received some feedback that this forum of subject matter experts or issues that are rising to top of mind are beneficial for this forum. So again, we're taking that feedback. I would ask and just reiterate that throughout the presentation, put your questions in the chat if they're burning, or hold them until the end. And so once they get through some of the data points in the presentation, we can open it up to more of a conversation and make sure everyone's questions and issues are addressed. And so with that, if I'm not missing anything, Ms. Craybill, I'll turn it over. Eddie, over to you. And Anita, if you need to drive the slides, I'm not sure, but over to you.
All right, well, thank you, Josh. And yeah, my name's Eddie Anderson. I'm Assistant Superintendent for Operations. And the departments that I'm responsible for, of course, transportation that we'll be talking about tonight, maintenance operations, facility planning and construction, and child nutrition. I am going to share my screen, and hopefully we can follow. So it's not, there we go. So we'll follow through with this presentation, and because this really shows the work that we've been doing. And it's not just the work that I've been doing or Mark's been doing, and I'll introduce Mark in just a second. We're gonna tag team this presentation, but this is really about the work that a focus group has been doing. We put together a focus group a few months ago to really identify the initiatives to improve our services. We were very solution oriented. We identified some of the challenges that we've had this year, and some ongoing challenges even prior to this year. And then we'll cover, what we're doing currently and some proposed initiatives that this group has come up with. This group, our focus group members, I'm not going to go through each person's name, but you can see the names there. We tried to get a good mix of people from the schools. These are people that are involved in bus transportation on a daily basis. So it might be the principal, it may be an assistant principal. We covered pre-K, elementary, middle, and high schools. We also included Ms. Leek, who is a representative from NC Papa, that is the North Carolina Principals and Assistant Principal Association, and Allison Jones, who is representing special education. So the first thing I want to do is just kind of give everyone an overview of transportation. What is a day in the life of transportation look like? And at this time, I'll turn it over to Mark to get us started here. Mark Clausen is the Director of Transportation. And Mark, I'll give it over to you to carry us through the next couple of slides.
Okay, thanks, Eddie. So just to kind of give everybody a brief overview of what it is we have to deal with on a daily and weekly basis. So every day we operate about 102 buses. Sometimes that's up a little bit, sometimes it's down. We complete 520 runs. That's a trip. That's a group of kids that we pick up, deliver to a school, and then go do it again. We do 520 of those each day. We drive over 9,500 miles. That's equivalent to 2 round trips to Barstow, California and back from Wilmington on I-40 from end to end. And we transport around 11,000 riders each day. On a weekly basis, we process 300 bus assignments. Those are the requests for a trip from students through the schools that parents indicate their child needs a bus ride. Those 300 bus assignments will create about 150 route adjustments. Those adjustments could be added stops, change stops, change in the sequence of the run itself. And we also substitute 200 runs each day, each week, because of driver absenteeism. Our drivers, it's a tough job. It's a split shift. They've got kids. They fall out of work for certain reasons. Either the kids are sick, they're sick, they have conflicts in their schedules. So that creates an added wrinkle to what we have to do each week. And there's about 40 of those each day. We also collect and analyze late bus data on a daily basis. Every day we collect what buses get to which schools at what time to determine if we've got a chronic late bus situation. And if we do, we're working to improvement. What you can see here is the first 2 weeks of this school year, we averaged 18 late buses every day. And in the most two recent weeks, that has been cut to 3 late buses. Actually, it's actually down from that because in this last week, we've had quite a few perfect arrival days for every bus, those 520 runs getting to every school on time. So we're pleased with that performance. We're never happy until we get that on a daily basis, which is going to be a tough challenge. We can go to the next slide. And so what does a typical day look like for us? Well, in the mornings, we have a lot of tiers. Pre-K they go into school first, followed by elementary. Our middle and high school are at the same time. We then take early colleges to their campuses. We collect them at the high school and shuttle them to the early colleges. We have modified days that have transportation requirements, and we have field trips that are ongoing. They've returned since COVID started. The afternoons, it's pretty much the same thing in the reverse order. All of the same things I just mentioned, but we also have an after-school program where we are taking kids home after tutoring sessions and after sporting practices. So that is something new this year. We've got a lot of drivers working a lot of hours. We had 63 employees 1 week in the month of November that were in overtime, over 40 hours a day, a week. So that is certainly one of those things that just heightens our ability to get everybody to school and home on time. We'll go to that next slide. So if you want to pick it up here and then we'll go through it.
Unmute myself there. Yeah, absolutely. Before we go through this, I'd like to reiterate something that Mark said. This has been a very challenging year for a lot of different reasons. We got off to, it would be mildly to say we got off to a rocky start. It was a very tough start. And while we have made improvements, we're not satisfied with where we are. There's room for improvement. And so we really wanted to pull, a group of people that work with us on a daily basis together to identify some of the challenges and really focus on solutions. And so, this is a good opportunity for us to solicit input from you as well. You're our client. And I look forward to, at the end of the meeting, hearing what you think some of the challenges are, but more importantly, maybe some ideas that you have that we haven't thought of and that we could add to something in the future that we'll be evaluating. So yeah, to get us started, bus driver recruitment and retention, on-time buses, communication has been a challenge, consistent practice of process and procedures. We'll talk more about each one of these, establishing beginning of the year school routes and student discipline. The format for the presentation is we'll go through each one of these individually. So bus driver recruitment and retention. This is not a New Hanover County Schools problem. It's not a state problem. It's a national problem. Some of the things that we've been doing is, and I really hope that you've heard of at least the first one, because it's been in place for a while, and I'm just not sure that everyone's aware of it. But we do have a hiring and a referral bonus program. So if you are a new hire, then and you successfully complete the training and get your CDL, there's a $1,000 signing bonus. And then there's a referral bonus for any New Hanover County Schools employee. If they refer a new bus driver and they successfully complete the program as well, then the person making that referral also gets a $1,000 bonus. We have made a big difference or improvement in our recruitment efforts. We've been hiring new drivers last year more than previous years. This year we're on track to hire more as well. But at the same time, we're not retaining our employees like we did, and they're leaving for various reasons. But the other thing, one of the things about hiring a bus driver, if you need a job, you need a job, and you can't wait weeks to start work and start getting that paycheck. So as soon as they pass the written CDL class, we're going to bring those driver candidates on board as a monitor. And I like to think of it as really good on the job training. Part of the process for getting your CDL is a driving test. And as you can imagine, it can be a little intimidating to be driving a school bus and having someone monitor you and critique you and every little thing. So, we get them on that bus. We make them feel comfortable being on the bus. They have the opportunity to ask questions of our existing drivers. And then we also have the opportunity to take them out when there are no students on the bus and give them some driving time and help them prepare. One thing our Board of Education has been focused on is increasing the minimum pay. We're actually at $15 an hour, which is, that says pending state budget approval, which the budget has been approved. And so this has now been approved as well for our bus drivers. So that's $1 an hour more than the other non-certified staff are making. And again, this is not where we want it to be. I think driving a bus is it's a difficult job, but it also requires specific training and certification. And if we want to be competitive in our salaries, that's going to need to continue to raise. More frequent online CDL classes. Previously, CDL classes were only offered in person. They're now being offered online. They are more frequent, and they also have a higher success rate. I'm not sure why that is, but we'll take it. If they're getting better results from the online class, we want to put as many people in that online class as possible. Some of the proposed initiatives that the group had identified. One thing is we really want to have a new position for training and recruitment. We'll be recommending this in the upcoming budget. I think there are some partnerships and some opportunities that may be available locally. One would be with Cape Fear Community College, but it is a lengthy process, and this person would focus on the people once they sign up, is keep in touch with them on a daily basis. Make sure that they're getting the information that they need submitted in a timely manner so that we can bring them in as monitors and they can start getting that paycheck as quickly as possible and ultimately achieving their CDL. Employee recognitions. Some of the things that were recommended, employee of the month, making recognitions for perfect attendance and safe driving records. And then to carry that possibly one step further is to look at attendance bonuses. As Mark said, there's absenteeism rate. It's not that bad, but with the lack of drivers and the lack of subs, the impact on a daily basis is huge. So if we could reduce those absenteeisms by 50%, it would make a huge difference. And this is one of the things we've talked about to possibly do that. So Mark, I'll let you carry or take this one.
Okay, so for on-time buses, this has really been something that I've wanted to do since I took over this assignment. Because to me, if we can't get kids to school on time, we're doing those students a disservice. So when COVID hit, we lost a lot of drivers. When Eddie talks about retention, we hired 13 new drivers last year, but we lost 45. This year we've hired 8 and we've lost 10. So we're on a sliding scale that is reducing our driver pool. So we had to do some things to combat that. And if you don't have the supply of drivers, then you got to reduce the demand. And the thing that we focused on were community stops. What that has done, it's allowed our buses to stay on the main thoroughfares, reducing the miles that they travel, which reduces the time, which allows us to get kids to school quicker, which is a good thing for anybody that potentially is exposed to COVID. But more importantly, it allows these drivers that we have, which are fewer of them, to do double runs, which means they'll go out in the morning and they'll get the kids that are furthest away from the schools, deliver them, and then go back out for a second set of kids that are closer to that school, deliver them, and then they'll go to the next bell tier for the high school, middle school, and early college, and what have you. And so this has allowed us to get these kids to school on time with greater success than ever before. It also requires us to have some earlier AM drop-off times. We've had the cooperation from the middle schools and high school middle schools that allow us these double runs. To give you a sense of how many we're doing, you saw how many runs we do each day. We have 46 drivers that are doing double runs. And so nearly half of all of our pool is going out and doing those double runs at the same bell tier. It says here we had all of our buses arrive on time 3 days last week. Actually, we had 2 more this week. So for a grand total of 5 days, all of them so far in the month of December. We've had everybody get to school on time. It's a fantastic feeling when you get that report and you know everybody got there on time. But you know, there's so many things we can't control. We can't control if we have a mechanical issue. We can't control if there's accidents, or if there's other issues that impede our bus delivery times. But these things they continue to need to be focused on. The proposed initiative we have, Eddie hit up on this on the last slide, is the driver recruitment and retention. The more drivers we have, the less need to pull office staff out of their jobs to drive buses. Last year, we didn't have to do it. This year, we've had to go back and put some office staff back in the driver's seat. They're willing to do it because they're dedicated employees. They want to get these kids to school on time. But it really does tax our workers with a lot more hours away from their families than they really would like to be putting in. And then this establishing accurate beginning of the year routes, we're going to hit on this on a future slide, but we don't want to start the year with bad information. We want it to start off with as good as we can get, so that particularly at the beginning of the year, if we don't have the right balance of riders, distance, time, vehicles, then we're in a constant state of chaos and dynamic changes. The late buses we have now are because somebody is caught in a situation that they can't get out of. Either the bus left the lot late in the morning, or they get caught up in traffic. But the routes themselves, they are built and designed now to accommodate the number of riders, the distance between the stops, and being able to get those buses to schools on time.
All right. Communication. The couple of the things that we've done, Edulog Parent Portal app. If you don't have that installed on your phone, it's a great app so that you can actually track your bus. You'll see the student assignment, you'll see the scheduled times, and it'll give you alerts when the bus is close to the stop. School Messenger. Again, I think at the beginning of the year, this was a new program, and we had to work through some challenges and making sure that the information that we had in School Messenger was correct. I think we're doing a much better job now. And the calls are going out if there's a late bus or a substitution. We've also recently hired an evening dispatcher. One of the things that we heard from our families and our schools is that if there was a concern or the bus hadn't gotten home yet, they couldn't reach anyone in transportation. So there's an evening dispatcher. We gave that person a cell phone. So if they get up and they're doing something else, you always have that phone. So that is posted on the transportation website. And we want to make sure that, when you need to get in touch with someone when in transportation, you're able to do so. We're now able to include school administration in School Messenger calls. So if we had a late bus, and then we could send out a message to the families of the students that were on the bus, but we weren't able to include the school administration. And so we're now able to do that. A lot of families, they may call the school if they do not have the Parent Portal app, or for some reason they didn't get the message. So we're making sure that the school administration is in that loop from the very beginning. They have the information we have so they can respond to calls. And then we're sharing with the schools the daily substitute report. So again, if they are asked questions or get calls, they've got the information that they need to respond to those calls. And this proposed initiative is something that we're really excited about. I'll let Mark, I'm going to let you talk about it as well. But New Hanover County Schools was one of 15 school districts in the state of North Carolina that was included in a pilot program. And this program expands the technology on buses. So instead of just tracking the bus, parents are able to log into an app and see did their student actually get on the bus? Because the students will check in on the bus when they get on the bus, they'll check off when they get off the bus. So parents will have availability to view that information and know for sure, know for certain that yes, my student did get on the bus, and yes, they got off at school, or yes, they got off at home. Probably one of the biggest advantages for us is the onboard navigation. So, just like most of you probably have in your car or on your phone, you've got turn by turn, directions. And right now our bus drivers are using paper routes. We've got to do better, and we certainly can do better. This not only provides them that turn by turn direction, but it's in real time. And so if they do make a wrong turn, it'll get them back on the route as quickly as possible. If we need to substitute routes, they have that information and the new route, in real time. So it's we're excited about this program. It's something new that the state just approved. I don't have a timeline as of yet to when this is going to be implemented, but we are tracking it very closely. Mark, you want to add anything about the Smart Bus program?
Yeah, I do. So the state has given each LEA that has this opportunity carte blanche to do with it what they want individually. We don't think that's a good approach. We're reaching out to some of the bigger counties that have the same opportunity, and we're going to collaborate on a list of requirements that we can get to the suppliers that have the ability to offer this better solution for these school systems, so that we come up with a collective whole set of requirements that all of the collective minds that are responsible for these larger districts that are a part of this program can collaborate on, so that we don't miss something. We don't want to divide and conquer our suppliers. What we want to do is we want to get all of the requirements from all the individuals that have years and years of experience doing this, and also pick the brains of the suppliers, because they know the technology. Who we're dealing with are people that are outside of North Carolina, because North Carolina requires us to use what's called TIMS. It's a system that, for lack of a better term, it's been anchored in the past. We have our map database that is a hand-drawn map. We have to add speeds, we have to add addresses, we have to add new streets. And if anything changes, we've got to go in and manipulate that map by hand before we can assign students, or before we can update our routing capabilities for our drivers. And we want to get away from that. And that's one of the biggest things that we see as an opportunity here, is to use GIS and Google Maps as the baseline maps that we don't have as a district to have to manipulate, manage, update. That should happen for us from a supplier, because that data is available across the entire United States, and it's being used in states outside of North Carolina. So we think that is an easy opportunity for us to pull that information in. But then, as Eddie talked about, not only routing for the buses, but to track the students. So when you hear, and everybody's heard this, we're looking for somebody, they didn't get off at their stop, or they're on the wrong bus, because these buses will have card readers and students will have RFID badges, we will know who got on the bus, what bus did they get on, where did they get on, and at what time. So the parents can know exactly, not where the bus is, but is their child actually on that bus. And when that bus gets to a bus stop, that driver will have a list of students with their pictures pop up on his nav screen that will say, these 6 kids got on this bus this afternoon, they need to get off at this stop. So no more of a kid falling asleep in the back of the bus, because that driver is not going to pull away from that stop until all of those names pop off the screen, because they've arrived or at their bus stop and they actually got off at their stop. So we really think, from a tracking of students, knowing how many kids are riding the bus, how far they're traveling, where they got on, where they got off. If they got on the wrong bus, the driver will be alerted. You're on the wrong bus. This is not your vehicle. You need to go up 2 vehicles. That's your proper vehicle. So we think that is one element that parents are really going to appreciate, because we can track packages. Everybody here is Amazon customers. You know exactly where your package is, at what step of the process. There's no reason why transportation can't provide that same amount of information for your child as we are transporting them between the school and the bus stop.
Yeah, and I really think that the bottom line takeaway here is that this is going to help us be more efficient and do our job better. And you will be the beneficiary of that. So, and then it obviously provides you more real-time information when knowing where your student is and where the bus is. Mark, you want to continue?
Sure, yeah, certainly. So consistent practices and process and procedures. So this is something else that we here in transportation have documented. We created documented processes. We've got a history of what we do so that we can go back and look to see if we need to find out what happened on a particular day. Employee training is first and foremost. We want to make certain our drivers have the best information possible, not only on how to operate the vehicle safely, but how to deal with behavioral issues, how to deal with conflict, how to de-escalate situations with either parents or 2 riders. So that is something that's going to take a front seat here very shortly. We've created processes for bus assignments so that we don't make mistakes. The worst thing for us is when we get a call and somebody says, I can't find my child. They didn't get off the bus, or I need a bus ride and I need it today, but we didn't put the request in enough time. So what we really want to do is just create this discipline so that we don't make those mistakes. And that's what this is all about. So number 3, adherence to the NHCS policy for pre-K and K2 riders. These are our youngest riders. You know, we call them, a lot of our kids identify buses by color because they can't put a 3-digit bus number together. So from a pre-K perspective, these kids are only delivered in the afternoon with a hand-to-hand transfer, which means the person that's authorized to get them off the bus is checked. And when our aide lets go with one hand, the person that can gather them takes them in the other hand. So it's not across the parking lot. It's not across the park. It's not somebody sitting in a car. It is at that boarding door. K-2 riders is a little bit different, but it's the same process, is that parents must be at the stop to get these K-2 riders, or they get taken back to the school. We do have a process in place that allows the parent to designate their child can get off by themselves, because let's just, you know, in certain cases, the bus stop is in front of the house and mom has, you know, 6-month-old twins that she can't leave. So that she'll allow the kindergarten, 1st, 2nd grader to get off the bus, come across the yard into the house. And very few parents do that. Most of them authorize some other individual, a caregiver. We don't identify who they are. It's just the parent has said to us, my kindergartner, 1st grader, 2nd grader get off the bus with somebody else. Sometimes it's an older sibling. As long as they're 3rd grade and above, they can get off the bus. But our drivers, if they get to the stop, what grade are you in? Who's here to get you? Who is that? Mom or dad, they get off the bus. If it's anybody other than mom and dad, they check their route sheet. Do they have this form signed? If they don't, the child goes back to the school. If they do, and there's somebody there, you can get off the bus. If it's off by themselves, then obviously they're good to go. We also have recently hired an assistant director, Deb Trafton, who was a supervisor in human resources, has joined our team. She'll start just after the new year. Her job is going to be to oversee the daily operations of moving kids. I'll be focusing on procedures, policies, maintenance, routes, purchasing, payroll. But Deb's role is really going to be to fine tune all of the things we're talking about. How do we get drivers best equipped to operate that bus? How do we make certain kids are at the right stop, on the right bus, at the right school? Do we have our routes balanced from time, distance, and capacities? So that's going to be Deb's primary focus. Eddie mentioned the new position for training and recruitment. We're actually taking our 3 break rooms, creating 1 large break room for all the drivers. And then the 3rd break room is going to be designated for training and a conference room. So that's where that training activity is going to take place. The training is going to become more frequent. We're going to focus on safety, behavior management, de-escalation, and conflict resolution, like we've mentioned. And we want the bus experience to be a positive one. And for the most case it is. And we've got some very dedicated bus drivers, very caring, considerate, wonderful people. But as you can guess, what we're doing, what we're asking these drivers to do at an elementary level is take 3 classrooms of kids, put them in a small space, turn your back on them, and drive that bus for 15 to 20 minutes. Most frequently without a monitor. That creates sometimes a stressful environment for the driver and the students, but we want it to be as good as we can. And with training, we're going to get it to be that much better.
So establishing the beginning of the year school routes. Let me first say that one of the challenges this year is that we didn't have really good data. Prior to COVID, you always had your data from previous years, and you were able to move up 5th grade, 8th grade. So you had a really good starting point. But last school year, when we had the schedules of AA, BB, and we were trying to figure out our transportation routes, we had to clear all that data and really start from fresh and create routes that matched the schedule that we were attending school for that period of time. So when we came back to school full-time this year, again, we had to clear all that data and start from scratch. And that was not an easy task. And on top of that, in the middle of all that, we decided we're going to switch our student enrollment program over to Scribbles. There's some challenges with when you're implementing any new program, obviously, but that didn't communicate very well with PowerSchool. PowerSchool is where Tim's gets its data from. And to give you an idea of the beginning of the school year, we actually had 3,000 more students assigned to buses out of PowerSchool than we did in Scribbles. So that meant we were assigning those students and establishing routes based on 3,000 kids that weren't riding the bus. We quickly realized that and started making adjustments, taking actual student counts and targeting those schools with the largest discrepancy. So next year, we're actually going to start with the Scribbles data. Transportation can download that data into TIMS, and they can also, they can upload that data into PowerSchool, which TIMS will take. So with the combination of this year's data, this year's routes, and starting with the Scribbles data next year, we will be in a much better place. Now, the first couple of weeks of schools, there's always some adjustments, and we'll always go through that. This year, instead of it being the first couple of weeks, it was probably the first couple of months. And it was, we worked through that challenge, but point is we're going to be at a much better place, starting place next year. The other thing that we're talking about, and I'm not sure, I don't have all the solutions, so I'd love to hear your ideas, but a lot of parents register their kids for bus transportation at open house. That is really too late for us to, change routes. It's the week before school, and it's you know, we need a good 2 or 3 weeks to you know, finalize routes. So those, you know, we call them late assignments, you know, are being added that week of school. So we've got to figure out a way to better communicate with parents, get that transportation request in earlier, and have, you know, have transportation and the routes posted earlier, communicate those routes to parents earlier. And I think we'll start out with you know, much better data, much better, more accurate routing information. All right, Mark, I'll slide it back over to you.
So this has been one area that we've had probably more issues with this year than in the past. And talking to the principals, I think part of it is last year's COVID situation where kids have not been socialized. And so they're coming back into school full time. They're in buses that last year were distance for ridership. Now we're beyond where we have been in recent years because of the capacity. So we've got to fill the seats up. And that really creates the environment that increases the stress I talked about earlier. We've had some inconsistent approaches used to correct student behaviors. We've, you know, sometimes the drivers don't issue referrals as often as they should, which means there's no paper trail, there's no history for the school administrators to rely on to relay those behavioral issues to parents and to students. So we've asked our drivers to take a more consistent approach to making certain that these referrals are processed and submitted on a regular basis. Holly Shelter has taken a very aggressive approach because for whatever reason, and I know what it is, it's they take in the last, they start the latest in the morning, they go home last in the afternoon, which means when there's a delay on a route ahead of theirs is just compounded to make it that much worse. And the district is very large. It's a big district for a middle school, probably the largest in the county, which means the bus rides are quite long. And Holly Shelter's taken a very aggressive approach to dealing with discipline issues. I don't want to say it's every day, but it's nearly every day I see students being suspended from the bus. But at the same time, I see the student behaviors where items are being thrown at the driver. They get out of their seats. There's fights on the buses. There's masks that aren't being worn. There's seatbelts that aren't being worn. So we really, it's this whole idea of how do we get these kids to and from school safely and get these behavioral issues under control. It's working, but unfortunately, there's 11 buses at Holly Shelter, and which means there's close to 600 kids that are riding a bus. And, you know, to address 600 kids, there's going to be behavioral issues. And most of them always occur in the afternoon. So that's the time everybody's kind of like, you know, their energy is shot. They want to get home, and sometimes they get excited before they actually get to those bus stops. So we want more consistent use of the referral process to document these concerns. Every one of our buses have cameras, and it's not one camera, it's usually 4 or 5. They are very good at capturing behavioral issues. And we've got 4 people that if they're not driving a bus, they're pulling cameras and clipping videos and sending it to school administrators. And it's a great tool to help us to identify who on the bus is acting out. Eddie and I have been talking to other school districts about a transportation code of conduct. We've worked on a draft that we both reviewed. It talks about the levels of offenses, the repeat offenses at those levels, and the consequences associated with what happened and how frequently it's happening or being repeated. And we really think that it's going to become a very useful tool, which takes the subjectivity out of the consequence, because really what we want to do is apply a set of rules that are consistent, so there is no basis for a biased approach to handling discipline issues on buses.
Yeah, and the last one there, increased training and leadership, de-escalation, conflict resolution. I really do believe with our bus drivers and our monitors that we can do a better job, and we will do a better job in providing them training so that they can really de-escalate situations before they become a problem. We don't want to refer students for disciplinary action to the school. We want to work with the schools and with the families to make sure it never gets to that point. So, I think that's it. And this is probably the most boring PowerPoint presentation that I ever put together. But it's a lot of information. There's a lot of data, and a lot to say about each one of these challenges. And again, the focus group has really been the first thing we did is just identifying the challenge. That was the easy part. Coming up and talking about the things that we're currently doing, areas we could improve, and then some new initiatives has really been our focus over the last couple of months. And so I'm really interested in hearing from each one of you. If there are challenges that we missed, then please bring those to our attention. But if there are other items, things that are going well, improvements that you've noticed, or maybe some ideas for some new initiatives that we could try, please bring those to our attention.
Eddie and Mark, thank you for your presentation. Our participants that are in the meeting, we ask you to continue adding some of those questions to the chat that you may have. But Eddie and Mark, I'll go ahead and start facilitating some of the questions if you're okay with that. We did get some while you were doing your presentation, so we'll just go ahead and go in the order that the questions were submitted, if that's okay. So our first question is from Laura Raymond, and she asked, did you include any parents on your focus group?
I'm going to bring this back up. We did not include parents on the focus group. We wanted the focus group to begin the process, and then this is our opportunity, and we'll also explore other opportunities to get comments and input and from suggestions from our families. So we're not at the end of the process. We're really at the beginning of the process, and so we're going to continue to solicit input and comments from families and parents.
Our second question is also from Laura Raymond, and she said, have you had any safety issues with the community stops? What I mean on the above is buses stopping on the main road with a 45-mile-per-hour speed limit. I'm concerned that a car following a bus may not stop and run into the kids standing on the main road.
Yeah, we haven't seen any increase in accidents. Not from the community stops or this year to previous years. But I would like to talk about community stops just for a minute. I know that's not the most popular thing, and it was a necessity with the driver shortage. I think it was a necessity with COVID and the pandemic. We hope to expand our stops and provide better service. If there are specific concerns about an individual stop, we'll look at that. We'll go out and evaluate it. In some cases, we've made changes. In other cases, we haven't. I think that community stops, they're not going away. You know, it's something that, you know, until especially the driver shortage is resolved completely 100%, you know, we're gonna have to have community stops and double runs.
This next question is from Ellen Sally, and she said, the community stop for us is now 3/4 of a mile from our house, which means having to walk down a 35-mile-per-hour road with no sidewalks that most vehicles speed on. The lack of safety factor every day has forced us to not use the bus system. How can we figure this out? Since this is a safety issue, how about using some of the $350 million safety fund to hire more bus drivers and to get full routes back? Nobody cares about a bus app or commuter navigation for drivers if we can't use the bus in the first place.
Well, I would say if there's if you do have a specific issue with a specific stop, you know, please feel free to contact me or Mark. We'll be glad to take a look at it. 3/4 of a mile walk to the bus stop. Yeah, that does sound excessive. I'm personally not aware that we have stops that far. So we'll be glad to look at any specific issues. But again, you know, going back to the more general presentation, yeah, community stops. We hope to expand the service, providing a better service to our families as well as our schools. And we're hoping that these proposed initiatives to, you know, increase bus driver recruitment and retention, and beginning the year with more accurate routes, that's a step in the right direction. And we continue to do that. We'll continue to improve and continue to expand those services.
This next question again is pretty specific, but our middle high school bus has been coming earlier and earlier over the past several weeks. Can you please review our route so that it does not have the bus stopping on River Road where cars are constantly speeding, but bring it into our neighborhood for one community stop? Our neighborhood, River Oaks, has an easy in and out path that the buses could take. This would make it much safer for both our elementary stop and middle and high school stop.
Yeah, again, I don't really have the specific information that I could respond to. So, you know, just again, you know, feel free to reach out to me or Mark, and we'll be glad to look at that specific stop and route to see if you know, to evaluate the safety of the route and to see if there's a safer solution. We'll be glad to look at those.
And Eddie, what is the best contact method, or who should our families be reaching out to if they have these bus issues or issues with the stops that they need to reach out to?
Yeah, I'll be glad to share telephone numbers for Mark and myself. My direct line at work is 254-4242. And
Mine is 254-4285.
And I'm also going to add your emails in here as well.
That'd be great. Yeah.
In the chat.
And provide as much information as possible. Definitely, you know, the bus number and the school, and then we can pull up that route, and we can if your student is assigned to that particular bus, please provide your student name as well. And yeah, we'll be glad to take a look at those and evaluate those on an individual basis and respond back with you.
Any other questions we have in here?
So Russell, what I'd propose, what I'd like to do is let's just open up the floor. I mean, this is a fairly small group, and it's certainly manageable with regard to, I think, you know, good faith conversation. So Anita or Russell or whomever has the power, if you could just you know, provide the opportunity for folks to unmute. And if we haven't addressed or, you know, gotten after your specific question, or we need some dialogue, let's open up that opportunity for a few minutes.
Okay, I will unmute everyone then.
No, I'm going to go ahead and ask a question that somebody had sent to me who was not able to attend the meeting tonight, just so that they can go back and listen to it. What about masks on the buses, since that is the main thing that is still required by the toolkit?
Right. Actually, yeah, the school kit refers to a CDC order, which requires face masks or face coverings to be worn on all public transportation. And they specifically call out school buses as part of that. So that is a CDC order that was reinforced by including that and referencing that in our Safe Schools Toolkit. So while masks are not required outdoors or in our building, there are a lot of students sitting very close together in a confined area on the bus. So masks are still required.
So Eddie, what is the procedure if a child shows up, or any age student shows up to the bus to get on and they have no mask?
Our drivers will have masks, and the drivers will provide a mask to the student.
And if they don't put it on?
What I've said is our drivers cannot drive the bus and be the mask police. We are going to encourage everyone, please take the mask and put it on. And we've been very successful with that. If for some reason, someone, refuses or has a medical exemption or something like that, we'll try to isolate that person or socially distance that person as much as possible. But it takes a lot to drive a bus, and I can't ask the bus drivers to be the mask police. So
Thank you. Yeah, that's all this parent wanted to know. Okay.
And we've allowed participants to unmute themselves. So if they would like to join in with any further questions, please feel free.
Hi, this is Nicole Morrell. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I wrote a question in the chat, but you kind of like read over it. So I don't know if I just didn't send it right or not. But I'm of course an employee of New Hanover County as well as a parent. And I've always wondered, just because I've worked at 2 different schools now, how do you guys make the decision on, especially because I know we're so short-staffed with bus drivers, how do you make the ultimate decision on how many buses each school gets? I've seen like some that's had 2 buses, and they end up having double routes for both buses, or another school. I see they have 3 buses, and I don't think they even have a double route. So how do you kind of make the call and the judgment on how many buses are assigned to each school?
Yeah, it really depends on the number of riders that are requesting bus transportation, and then the distance those riders have to travel. So I'll give you an example. There's a stop in Tarrant Woods. It's 1 stop, and there are 59 kids assigned to that bus out of Bellamy Elementary School. It takes that bus about 5 minutes to get to that stop. It unloads, it goes back to the school and picks up another load. If we had another driver, we would have another bus. So it really comes down to not how many buses we have, but how many drivers we have and how many riders, and how far do we have to provide that, how long does it take to get those kids home? So it's a constant balancing act between time, distance, riders, and drivers. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, it does. I just I noticed when I worked at the first school, they, like I said, they had 2 buses, and double routes. Those kids, this is elementary, they were really getting picked up late and and dropped off. So much I felt so bad for the younger crew. Of course, can't make it.
So I'll give you another example. The other thing we find is when, and it particularly it's associated with Gregory, Snipes, Freeman, Eaton, and Coddington. Those districts are very large, and so these kids are spread out. And quite often the bus doesn't fill up, but it can't travel the distance in the amount of time that we have. McKinney-Ventos adds a whole nother series of complications because these kids are out of district, which means we have to get them first and take them home last. And for us to do that, these buses are leaving early and earlier. We've got a Gregory run that just, it's constantly causing delays at Noble. And so we're going to take that run and divide it into 2 separate runs. We're going to identify a driver that can go out, do half of it, a different driver do the other half. And then it also really depends on the pairing, right? Where does one run end and the next run have to begin? So all of these things go into determining the number of buses and where they are positioned relative to double backs for fewer buses.
Got you. I was at College Park. I don't know if you're familiar with what goes on there, but it was just, I know right before I got the new job at a new school, they were definitely trying to, do things that make it, because it was just so late. But I get what you're saying. I just didn't know how you kind of divided it and decide.
I will tell you, every double run we have is because we don't have an extra driver. That's the short answer.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Well, and I would like to just add to that too. This is something that we're constantly evaluating, even in the best of times. We're in the most challenging times now. And what I mean by that, I'm sure many of you may have thought long and hard about putting your student on a bus. There's a lot of people that at the beginning of the school year decided they were going to ride the bus, and then they decided they weren't, or they decided they weren't, and maybe now they're more comfortable in riding the bus. So this is not something that we look at the very, very beginning of the year and say, that's it, this is what we're going to do for the whole school year. We're constantly communicating with our schools, administration, tracking the routes and the times. And like Mark said, here we are at the end of December, and we've identified a problem that might not have been a problem at the beginning of the year, and we're making those adjustments. So this is a continuous process.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions from our participants?
Can I ask a question?
You may.
Sure.
So just some general feedback. I mean, do you think we're on the right track? The focus group, do you think we've identified the challenges? Did we miss anything? Are there some, maybe some proposed initiatives that we didn't think of? I know we need to provide, additional parent input. But in all honesty, I was really excited to share tonight and to get some input. So do you think this is a good thing? Do you think we're heading in the right direction, or what's just the general feel?
Don't be shy. This is your opportunity.
Well, I'll speak up again. Sorry if nobody gonna say nothing.
Go ahead.
I don't mind, only because this is it means a lot to me too. I personally definitely think I'm very glad. I had a busy schedule, so I didn't know I was going to be able to come up here, but I'm glad I did, because I do think that you guys are on the right track. Number one, if you're listening and trying, that's already going to be on the right track, because you're not putting a brick wall up. It's just not, oh, it is what it is. We don't have no other resources, blah, blah, blah. So to me, you're going to always be on the right track if you're listening first to the needs and then trying to implement something. Money, let's just be honest, is always a wonderful aspect to offer when you're having a struggle with hiring. In any job, the most thing they first go for is try to offer pay increases, incentives, rewards, blah, 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 because people do respond, or seem to respond to that quicker. I think, unfortunately, with bus drivers, just over time, I feel like they got a bad rap. The job itself, it's, you know, it's tough. There's only one driver and all these kids, and it's hard to handle them, and they don't listen, or then it's so many routes, and it's so time consuming, etc. So I think the job duties itself maybe already has such a bad rap that even with the increase, that it isn't really pulling a lot of people to like overwhelming amount to come and start applying. But all we can do is like pray and try that with these attempts and these incentives and these feedbacks, listening and asking for people's opinion, it will show them that we're kind of like in a new generation way of thinking. It's not the old school, style. It's just kind of like really want to try to make it better, because it is a rough thing for the schools right now. Like one of the parents was saying, like, my daughter, she walked so far. I was scared to death. She started 6th grade. And to me, I know I was middle school, but that was not old enough for her to be going like from one total end of the corner, that if she screamed, I wouldn't have heard her. And I was very fearful of that. Thankfully, with my husband's schedule, we could work out. Someone was always like around or could walk with her, etc. But everybody can't do that. But the answers that we would get is, I'm sorry, we don't have enough drivers. We got to do as less stops as possible. To a parent, that doesn't resolve it, and that's not a good answer. For compared to their safety, there's nothing that is more important than our children's safety. Less drivers just means to me where they're going to get to school a little later, because you got to come and get my baby a little closer, because I'm that's risky. So I feel like you're on the right start. How quick it can pump it up, I don't know, but I do think like you guys are on a good start to trying to get things better.
And I really appreciate what you said about the position itself. And I want to tell you that we've identified recruitment and retention, as a challenge and a need, but we also have some very good, very dedicated employees. Some families have we have drivers that have been drivers for generations. Their parents were drivers, they're drivers, and their kids are driving. It might not be the best fit for everyone, but it is a really good fit for a lot of people. There are a lot of positive things that our drivers will share with us in terms of being able to drive, and they are truly dedicated, and they're the first ones to see the students in the morning and the last ones to see the students in the afternoon, and they have the opportunity to make such a big impact. How that bus ride is in the mornings may determine how their day goes, and so it's a very rewarding job, and I just don't want you to think that it's a revolving door. We have some really good people in transportation that do a really good job each and every day.
If I can follow up with a question really quick. Obviously, the bus driver shortage is a considerable factor, and I know it's a national issue as well. Do you know if it has been the commonplace solution then for all districts to go to these community stops?
Well, I'll say that for the past 2 years, this was initiated at the beginning of COVID. I participate in periodic phone calls with the top largest 15 districts in the state. Mm-hmm. And I can say that every one of those districts has gone to community stops. I read about that in publications and various formats that I receive information from on transportation. Mark, you've probably talked to more of your counterparts with other districts and could share more.
And it really is. It's a nationwide solution, because it just, again, it is simple math, right? It's time, distance, capacity, and vehicles. And you got to make the math work. And if we move away from that, it just means if we want to hit that delivery time, then we just got to start that much earlier in the day. And what we realize is we just, even so, I can almost put it differently. When we had 145 drivers and we would go into these communities, we averaged 20 late buses every day. And so what we realized was, and all the other school districts are the same way, when you bite off more than you can swallow, you bog yourself down and you just can't deliver a good service. And so we say it's reduction of drivers, but in reality, if we had 150 drivers and we tried to go back into neighborhoods like we used to and stop the bus twice as often as we do today, we would fail. We would fail our kids and our families. And so distance to stops, the state says we have to be within a mile of a residence to locate a bus stop. I want to say our average walk distance is 0.2 of a mile. And I want to say it's 94% of our walk distance are less than 0.6 of a mile. So there's only about 5 to 6% of our riders that have to walk over 0.6 of a mile. And some of those situations we can't do anything about. We can't take a 40-foot bus down a dead end without a way to turn it around. And so even if we could get closer, sometimes we just physically can't. And that's a larger portion of that 6% that have those longer walk distances.
Right. It's just definitely, safety is such, I think, an important issue for us parents, and with young children, and our stop in particular is that 0.6 of a mile walk to the community stop. And so it is really concerning and a challenge for my husband and I to get our children to the bus stop on a daily basis, twice a day, when we both hold jobs as well. So I don't know if do you all ever reevaluate when you have additional staff? Well, it sounds like there's other routes actually that have more problems than our own if kids aren't getting home until 5 p.m.
Well,
is there a constant reevaluation, I guess, of the bus routes, or is it more like once you had them set in, say, September, they're pretty much set for the year?
No, they change dynamically. That's where we talked about what happens on a daily and weekly basis, especially early on when we're really working diligently to get the balancing act just right. This time of year, it's a little bit easier because kids are settled in. There's less movement between families moving this time of year than early in the summertime, and so the late requests for buses really became an issue this last year. We assigned 3,000 riders in the week before and the week after school started. That's 3,000 out of 11,000. So I mean, that when you try to create 500 runs and you've got 3,000 students that came out of nowhere, that in of itself is roughly between 50 and 60 busloads of kids. And so that's a huge number to deal with.
Yeah, I'd also like to add that I do hear you, and I understand what you're saying. My kids have graduated, but I can, having had kids that they always wanted to ride the bus, and my wife was saying, no, you're not riding the bus. She was terrified, but the kids always wanted to ride the bus. So I've been there. I hear your concerns. I certainly understand and appreciate your concern. Community stops. There's where we were prior to COVID and where we are now. We will expand our services and reevaluate routes if we see the number of drivers increase to where it could we could potentially do that. I don't see that happening right now. And so, hopefully, these initiatives that we're proposing, will pay dividends, and we'll see some improvements. And when we do, we certainly will, reevaluate our routes and our stops. But it will get better for you, but I don't think it'll ever go back to the way it was. Does that make sense?
It does. Have you guys been able to like advertise with the increased dollar and pay in order to try to hire more drivers recently?
We have had job fairs. We're advertising on social media, as well as the normal employment application platforms that we use with the school district. But I think that there are some, we've even, I don't know whether you think this is a good idea or a bad idea, but we've even advertised in our own high schools, because if you're 18 years old, you could drive a bus. We've advertised at UNCW and Cape Fear Community College. We've reached out to firefighters and law enforcement and others that may work shifts that would allow them to come in and maybe do a morning run or an afternoon run. I don't think we've exhausted all the possibilities, but I think we've come pretty close. But I do believe that that the petition or the position for recruitment and training will help with both the recruitment and the retention piece. So that's a really important position for us, and I'm hoping that we get that funded in next year's budget.
Eddie, we had a question in the chat that asked, can a driver start the position without their CDL, but sign an agreement to obtain it within the certain period? So I don't know if you want to reiterate what you had mentioned about how we've been helping with that.
Yeah, they are not able to drive a bus without that CDL. However, once they pass that written exam, and that's the first thing they do, and it's pretty quick, especially with the online program. Once they pass that written exam, we'll get them on a bus. They'll be riding the bus as a monitor, and getting that on-the-job training, getting that experience, and getting that paycheck. Because like I said before, if you're out looking for a job, most of the people looking for a job can't wait 4, 5, 6 weeks for a paycheck. I understand that. So this just one of the things we've done that I think has made a difference.
Eddie, does the online CDL test, does that include the hands-on skills qualification about the bus itself? Or Mark?
No, it's strictly the written test.
Right.
And once you get past the written test, then we have to do drug test, TB test. They have to get their commercial learner's permit. That allows the individual to actually drive the bus once they become an aide with nobody on it. So it really is, it's like a learner's permit for your driver's license. You have to have the learner's permit for 2 weeks before you can take behind the wheel training. But I can tell you the behind the wheel training is it's kind of the pinch point right now, the bottleneck, because we only have one person there's 2 people that service Pender, Brunswick, and New Hanover County. And so we don't have the throughput. And so, but a lot of it is all the other steps. We manage it as closely as we can to push the candidate through the process. But I really think the opportunity to get them into the system, get them a paycheck, get them up on the bus, let them experience the environment, get behind the wheel, practice their driving, make certain that they can pre-trip a bus according to federal requirements. That's what's most important, because we want success. We want successful candidates. We don't bring somebody in here that can fail. And so this training opportunity really is working to our advantage.
So I have the one thing that I was very curious about and very excited about that you all shared with us is your Smart Bus pilot program. Do any parents have any comments about that with their students, with their children having a pass, you know, to get on the bus and so that we're tracked? Does anybody have any comments on that? Yay, nay, like it, don't like it?
It does seem like a decent option, I guess, to have a little bit more tracking for when we can't maybe get to the bus stops to pick up our children. But my understanding is it's unless I heard wrong, it's not actually in use right now for New Hanover County, or
That's
is it
correct.
being tested somewhere?
It's yeah, it's actually not being used anywhere, any district in North Carolina. You know, we've been, the state has locked us into the current program, and this is the first time that any districts have been allowed to you know, expand beyond that current TIMS program. So we're very excited to be included in the pilot program.
So when did you think it was going to start? Or are we into like next school year, 22, 23?
I would love for it to start next school year. I think there's still a lot of unanswered questions that you know, the districts have, and you know, are working together to resolve with you know, with State Department of Public Instruction. So I mean, that would certainly be my goal, but I think it's just a little too early to say with certainty that would happen.
Okay, thanks. Well,
Hi,
go ahead.
I am in IT, and I say that because of what I'm going to comment on. Excuse me. I do appreciate that you are offering one solution to keeping up with where your child is, because they're supposed to be going from point A to point B and back. However, I would prefer that if you swipe the child on the bus, and then the child can swipe off the bus, as opposed to being tracked the entire time. I just have a problem with the whole tracking. Track the bus. Know that the child has made it on and off the bus.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. It gives us the ability to know a child is on the bus and who's on the bus, because we have to provide that information to the state annually anyway. And this really helps to have our ridership data as accurate as possibly can be. So we're really not tracking children.
Understand that the program, the technology, does not give you the ability to track a student. The student swipes on the bus and swipes off the bus. And that's all you know, is that the student got on at this time, got off at this time. You can track the bus, but you cannot track the student.
So if the child gets on at their normal stop from home, and instead of getting off, I'm sorry, do that the other way. If they are leaving a middle school, Holly Shelter, and instead of getting off at their normal route, they get off 2 stops short. Do you know that the child has gotten off at that particular stop, or do you know that that child never got off?
We know that they attempted to get off at the wrong stop, and the system will indicate to the driver that they are not doing what is planned. And if they continue to get off the bus, they're probably going to get a referral that the child got off at the wrong stop, refused to remain on the bus until their planned designated stop. Does that make sense?
And the driver would, you know, the driver would address that with the student and say, "Whoa, you know, this is not your stop." As soon as the student swipes that card, it would alert the driver that, hey, this is not the stop for that student. So the driver would attempt to, address that with the student. If the student just jumped off the bus and anyway, then we would have a record of that because they swiped their card, and we could alert the school and parents.
You would alert the school. That's exactly where I was going to go. Is you would alert the school once that child did not swipe off.
At the correct stop. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So there was one question that just came in. Russell, do you want to grab it?
Sure. It's from Sarah. I think it's a good idea for the tracking. Toward the beginning of the year, my first grader often had a substitute bus driver, which caused drop-off time to vary by 40 minutes. However, EdLog was not updated, so I could not see what bus he was getting on. So hopefully this is more accurate.
Yeah, this would not, so the driver is basically going to, as opposed to anybody having to do something manually, the bus is going to have the route entered onto the screen. And as soon as that happens, the driver or the parents would know this is the bus number your children will be on today. It's going to happen automatically. And then once they get on, it will indicate to the parent, the student did board the bus. They are checked in. It's much like an airplane, right? You can track, the flight of an airplane. You can track that you've checked in, you've boarded the plane. This is really taking technology that exists in other industries and just applying it here in the school bus environment. And we think it's an awesome thing, because the one thing we really don't like to hear is the child did not get off at my stop. Where's my child? Did they get on the bus? Where did they get off? And when that happens, we go into full tilt. Let's find this rider.
So was there another question?
No, that was it.
I know
one
that
Sarah was asking.
we're running out of time here, and but
Yep.
I just would like to make one comment, and that is to thank each and every one of you, for participating, and for your questions and for your input. And also to remind you, those that had any specific questions about your student's route or stop, please reach out to myself or Mark, and we'll be glad to talk to you about that. So thank you.
Yes, and we have like 1 minute to go, and but so thank you all for participating. And this obviously was recorded, and you'll be able to find it on our YouTube channel. If you want to, if you think about it, please share this with your your friends and your child's classmates, parents, so that everybody has a chance to hear that. And then they can ask questions. Mark and Eddie are both very approachable and are very responsive to your needs. So, some things can't happen overnight, but some things can. So, please don't hesitate, to reach out. But thank you all for joining us tonight. And I hope you all have a nice holiday. Tomorrow's the last day of school until the new year. So, Josh, did you have anything that you needed to add, or Russell? Thank you both. And Sandra as part of your team, and Anita, and Chase, all the people that are doing that. Thank you so much for hosting that, like my thank you speech. Forgot everybody, but thank you for hosting these meetings for us, because they're so important. And I learned something new, even though I know half of what they're talking about. I learned a new little detail. And then what I learned more, that's even more important, is how you all feel about the programs that we are putting into place, and how we're managing those. So thank you very much for your feedback.
Yeah, Ms. Crable, I'll just add in closing as well. Big thanks to Eddie and Mark. Thanks for coming out and answering these questions. And to the folks watching live and the folks that are watching in the future, you know, we can tailor these meetings to your needs, right? And we want to, right now it's kind of deep dives into topics, and that's what you want. And, you know, give us that feedback and the opportunity to line up these folks and come and have the conversations. And they'll continue this format, maybe a different format, depending on how things go with COVID, roundtable discussions. But any opportunity for context, any opportunity for dialogue, feedback, input, clear the air, et cetera. We're going to seize on that opportunity, especially moving into the new year. So again, thanks everyone who's here and who will eventually watch. And for your time, Eddie and Mark, thanks so much.
Yep. Thank you. Happy holidays all.
Thank you.
Now.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.